Right, welcome to this new series here. It's like an introduction series for collecting the different factions, and for the armies that I have, I'm going to be doing these introduction videos here, and it'll be just like an overview of the factions. This one here, Adeptus Mechanicus, I have an army of these up to 2,000 points for 8th edition now, and this video is just designed as an introduction to them. It's going to be sort of quite a practical one there, just hints and tips, and just an overview of the faction itself. Practical things like, are they easy to paint? Is it expensive to collect an army of these compared to other factions? That kind of practical advice and tips, and it's just to help you as you consider perhaps collecting these for yourself. So I have the Codex here. This is the one for 8th edition, or the current edition of the Codex here. So, but regardless as to how old this video becomes, I'd imagine the advice here and what's talked about is going to be pretty much relevant. They're not going to change too much as time goes on. So I've got the Codex. I was inspired by this artwork here. I really liked it. Was the colour scheme that I really liked here as I considered collecting these. So the red, nice rich red colour here, and then all the metallic colours, and then this neon glowing electric. I just love the combination of those colours. Very, very striking, very, very strong colour scheme. So that's the colours I went for those. We'll take a look at some of the models here in this video as well, just to give you an idea of the kind of results that you can get. So to introduce them, you know, who are the Adeptus Mechanicus and what's the idea behind them? So it's for the glory of the Omnissiah, through the static chants of Beneric Kent, the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus send their armies of cybernetic horrors onward to conquer in the name of their machine god. A mix of man and machine, that's the whole theme behind these guys. One and all are disciples of an ancient religion that plunders the galaxy in the name of reason and logic. So the whole idea is, yes, it's all technology and advancement, but then also it's very strongly mixed in with a lot of superstition. So you get that kind of technology, but then like cloaked figures and that kind of mix of the two things. For towering knights to semi-automated legions of Skitarii warriors, all seek to fulfill the will of the Omnissiah. So there are these kind of mind-wiped, half-man, half-machines doing the bidding of their master. That's the kind of theme for these. Wielding, and it's an Imperial army, it's meant to be the good guys, so it's a nice theme running with these. Wielding deadly weapons of technological wonder and driving forward pitiless engines of extermination, the armies of the Adeptus Mechanicus advance, not to bring enlightenment to the galaxy, but to unleash utter destruction. Without mercy, without remorse, all must fall before them. So that's your theme. You sort of choose an army to match the way you like to play, or you can even maybe try and train yourself, force yourself to play in a different style if you're already used to collecting other factions. So for example, Astra Militarum, maybe you're a defensive player, you build up a big defense, Space Marines as well, maybe you play like that as well. But for this Imperial force, it is an army you want to advance, generally speaking, an army you want to advance and attack the opponent, which is maybe one of the reasons why you'd want to collect these. Maybe you've already got Imperial Guard and Space Marines, you want something aggressive. You like firepower, but you want something aggressive to use, then maybe this is the army for you. So you have that mix of, there's definitely shooting and firepower available in this force for sure. There's also a nice spread of units that are pretty good in combat as well. So there's a nice mix, a nice variety in this army if you want to go down that route. But the theme behind them is an advance with these. It's like a Roman legion that just takes the fight to the opponent. It's a steady, grinding advance. That's the theme. And so I've tried to reflect that in the army that I have. Now there is a complete army video where I do go through the entire list, and we just talk specifically about the army list that I've put together, and the strategy and the tactics for them, and how I plan to use them in games is discussed in that video. That's the introduction to them, just there, and it was that colour scheme I liked. There are other colour schemes available, and I've seen some really nice alternative colour schemes that people have done on the internet, but I really liked the Mars. That's the Mars colour scheme. Now if you look inside the book here, there's loads of different options. This is the Castellan robots here. There's loads of, you can pretty much paint these however you want. You sort of choose your Forge World, and either you can take one of these from the book, or you can make up your own. There's a lot of license here to paint them how you wish. with all the robes and things a lot of them are wearing, there's a lot of area where you can add this colour in. So Griffon 4, Voss Prime, very sort of medieval feel to that one. Demos, Triplex Foul, just here. Very striking colour schemes you can go for. There's Riser, I did like the orange, was tempted to go for that one. Metallica there, and then white. Gratia, which is similar to Mars. Styges 8. Agrippina, that one there. Again, that's quite nice, the gold trim on the helmet. Lucius. There's Mars, just here with one of the HQ's Tech Priest Dominus. Just there. It was that colour scheme I liked, and I really wanted to make sure I included this kind of glowing plasma, and you'll see that in the model. So what we'll do now is I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to focus in on some of the models just to give you a flavour of the kind of models that you get with this range. So I'm going to show you one of the heavy supports, one of the walkers. You know, this is a nice army if you're a keen Imperial player, but you want to collect something different, but you want to stay within the boundaries of the Imperium. And you want a bit of variety. Well, their vehicles, a lot of them are like walkers, not vehicles, so not like tanks, like track tanks. There's something entirely different to paint up just then. They do look really cool. So I'll show you one of those. I'll show you some of the HQs. There's Belisarius, cool. The Tech Priest Dominus as well, beautiful models. I'll show you some of the infantry, which I have here, some of the Rangers and the Vanguard as well I have painted up. And then some of the elite units as well. Got infiltrators here. And then Rust Stalkers as well, and these are it's a very, very unique army to collect. A lot of these aren't comparable to any of the other models that are out there. They're very, very strong theme and a very, very strong style. I'll also show you the Knight here as well, which is a great addition that you can take for Adeptus Mechanicus armies. So we'll just start with the basics here. This is one of the alphas here. That leads one of the Ranger infantry units. Just that, and then you can see the red here, just all reflected in that colour, just there. So, if you like the colour scheme that I have and the results that you can get, then there is a painting tutorial for these over on the regular channel here. So just look up in the painting tutorial section, you'll see Skitari painting tutorial, and you can follow along step by step and achieve those kind of results just there. So you can check that video out for that one. Now, one of the questions I have jotted down here is, are they easy to paint? And they're about medium, I would say. Pretty straightforward. I've got a batch of about 13 of them I've been using painting up to finish off the current list that I'm doing, and they've taken a while. They're quite fiddly, but as you'll see in that painting tutorial, you can use some techniques just to speed things up a fair bit. But if you want to achieve this kind of result, I imagine you could paint them up pretty quick. Just a few washes, paint the cloaks, and then you're done. But if you want to achieve this kind of effect, then they will take a while. Things like this backpack here with the brown straps and so on, I picked all of those out. That took a little while. Tidying up the cloak. If you're going to hand paint these patterns around here, I think it looks great, but that's going to take you a while as well. But if you did decide to paint them up quickly, you could achieve some very quick results indeed, as I said, just by doing a few washes over the metallic areas and just painting the cloak the main colour, and then you're pretty much there. So that's him. This is a leader for the Vanguard. Yeah, it took a while painting all of the, and I'll show you how to do it in the video actually, painting these, this checkered pattern, but it's so iconic I couldn't not put that on. I think it's a great touch to add on just there. Very sort of steampunk kind of feel to it, sort of semi-Victorian technology style going on here. So this old sort of contraption of a pistol, but at the same time potent though, not useless. Pretty good weapons they're armed with. A couple of regular infantry just here. So this one here is a Ranger. This one here is a Vanguard, so there's two types. And their weapons are slightly different. This one has 3 shots, this one's a rapid fire weapon with 1 shot or 2 shots at half range. just there. I think they look great. I love the infantry, I love the hoods. They look very, very cool. And then there's some heavy weapons the infantry can take. Just an example of one here. This is the transonic arquebus here. With the upright here to stabilise it. It's very Victorian sort of style, or even further back than that, but it looks very cool. And then I'll show you some of the elites here. So infiltrators. These guys, probably my favourite unit, I reckon. They just look very, very cool. They're armed with, there's got a lot of new weapons to learn here. This is a flechette blaster. And this is a taser goad here. And these are geared for combat. They saturate the opponent's units with hits, loads and loads of hits. And they fire lots of shots as well. A short range pistol that has 5 shots. They're a strange unit for sure. But half man, half machine. So here's the half man, and he's cut off at just above the knee, and then the rest of the legs replaced with these cybernetical constructs here. And it's the same with the arms, cut off just after the elbow and then replaced by machine. So half man, half machine style going on with these. But they really are incredible models. That's the leader just there with the cloak, just to mark him out. And the skull here. Did a darker, you see the armour's a darker shade. That's like a corn red I used for that. And then that's the Evil Sun's scarlet for the cloak. Show you, this is one of the Rust Stalkers. He's armed with a transonic razor. Just here, they deal out mortal wounds. This is a cord claw. I think this is the best combination you can take for these. I'll see if I can grab the leader for them. Just here. So, very, very cool, this guy. Just there. This is one of the first models I painted actually for the Skitarii. I remember painting him up just as a test run. Very happy with how it came out. Now, to answer one of the other questions, transport. People ask this quite a lot. Transportation and how fragile are they? This is a fragile army. It's comparable to the Dark Elder. That's fragile as well. A lot of spears and things sticking out from their vehicles. They can break easily, and it is the same for these. You'll see these swords. You see the slight bend in that one. That has broken on me in the past. I've had to re-glue it. You can see there's fragile parts to these on pretty much all of the models. Fragile, just there. And then things like these have broken on me before. These antennae. So they are fragile. So yeah, I've transported boys before and just thrown them all in the box. And they've survived, they've been fine. Space Marines to some degree as well, but chunkier sort of models. But these have a lot of fine bits sticking out, and so if you are going to transport them, you do need to be careful with them. It's a shame if all these bits break off. So they are fragile to transport. But my advice is a lot of bubble wrap, gently wrapping the models up and keeping them. Models break when they are touching each other in a box, and you get a jolt, and then something snaps. So the idea is to keep the models apart. And also, if models come up against something hard in a journey, and there's a jolt, and they hit against that, then they break. So the idea is to keep them separated from each other, and then wrapped up in bubble wrap is what I use, and then that usually protects them with no breakages at all. That's just a tip for transporting them. But they are skinny, and a lot of breakable bits on them, so they do need to be looked after. That's something to bear in mind if you start collecting these. Even the infantry here, a lot of bits on them that can potentially break as well. See all these parts here can snap and break off. So some of the HQs then. Tech Priest Dominus here, one of my favourite models. Beautiful, beautiful model, this one. Really, really nice. So now's a good time to collect them. Games Workshop have released a number of HQs for them, and they're very, very nice models indeed. So nice model to have at the centre of your force. Just there, and he's head and shoulders above the rest here. Even the larger infiltrator here is still smaller. And then just to compare him to the infantry, you can see the size comparison there. And these HQs are full of all the bonuses and able to repair vehicles and so on. So I really rate them, and they've got a bit of combat power as well. And then the main man himself, Belisarius Cawl, just here, an amazing HQ. I'll just refocus it. So there he is. Now, I was very intimidated in painting him just because of how intricate he is. But the technique, I used the same technique as I show you in the painting tutorial, and he came out fine. There is actually on the Plus channel a in-depth painting tutorial specifically for him, or from start to finish. I show you how to paint Belisarius Core. So if you're dreading painting him, then you can follow that tutorial along, stop and start the video, and then just complete each stage and achieve that kind of result. If you're going for a different colour scheme, then just swap this colour out, change it over to something else, but still follow the same principles taught there in the video. I added a few books and skulls and things to the base. It's just a nice feature there for this important HQ, but he's the leader of the army, just there. Then there is the heavier units here. This is the Dune Crawler, heavy support. Multiple options available for this one. I've gone for sort of the anti-aircraft Icarus array, as it's called. Fires a whole load of shots. 2 shots from that, 5 shots from these little rockets, and then a larger rocket fires one more high caliber shot. They can all fire in the same turn, so it just lets out a torrent of firepower. Just there. They're pretty tough. They've got like a force field that protects them to some degree as well. So there. Now there's a tutorial for this as well. I'm pretty well organised for the Adeptus Mechanicus. On the Plus channel there is an in-depth painting tutorial for a Dune Crawler, and I show you from start to finish how to achieve this result. I think this may even be the model I painted actually on the video. So if you want to achieve the same results as this, then check out that video there on the Plus channel. I'll link that in the video description below. And you may have heard that, that's a magnet. I found these were breaking off, so I cut it off, stuck 2 magnets on, and then before the game I keep these in a little bag, and then as I set up I just put those on, and that's that little aerial protected. If during the game I knock against it, then it doesn't break. Just there. The rest of the model's pretty sturdy, not much else that will snap off. So the last model to show you, struggling to get it on the screen here, and that's the Imperial Knight. You are able to take these in with your Adeptus Mechanicus army, and the rules for them are actually inside this book. So you don't need a separate Imperial Knight Codex to be able to do this. It's all contained within the book here. So the options, the upgrades, the different variants of the Imperial Knights are all inside this book here. I think it's a great feature. It's a thing that I wanted to do. I wanted an excuse to collect an Imperial Knight, and then I love the idea of, you know, this whole army is meant to worship machines and guard machines and that kind of the whole focal points machines. And I thought, why not have a big machine in the heart of the army, and then these surrounded by these zealots who'll do anything to protect it, and then the machine in turn helps them and guides them during the during the battle. So that was the whole idea. So here he is. I've recently rearmed him. He did have the Avenger Gatling cannon. I've changed it to the thermal cannon just here, and that was done by magnetising the weapon. Magnet in here, magnet underneath, that just clips on. I then put strong magnets here at the torso here. You can see a magnet there, and then I drilled down inside and then put a string of magnets down inside the body, and then inside here as well, nice and strong, so that goes on top like that, and that gives you a bit of movement for different poses just there. Reaper chainsword's the other option I went for, and I did do the rocket pod on top, which again is magnetised like that for the different options. There's a melter gun he comes armed with as well. Recently swapped that out. There was a heavy stubber, now it's a melter, but I'd recommend that. That's been great fun, and the army just looks so cool. It's great having a 40k army and then a large model of some kind. You know, if you've got Eldar, it's nice to have a Wraith Knight. That kind of larger model just look. And if you've got Astra Militarum army, you've got a Baneblade in there. It just looks great. It really has enhanced my Ad Mech army to have such a nice big model in the middle of the army. So it's something for you to consider as well. It may just give you an excuse to get an Imperial Knight, and then you can paint out all the heraldry that you want. I've sort of done mine from House Raven here with the red colour scheme, some Ad Mech symbols just here all added in, so he ties in nicely. Look, he's tied in so he looks like he does belong with that army. So it's a great addition. I'd heartily recommend taking the Imperial Knight, adding it into your force. And it's so easy to do now because it's all contained within the Codex. So we've covered a lot of ground already. We've talked about how easy they are to paint. I'd say they're about medium, although you could quickly paint them up if you needed to, just by putting some washes over the metallics and then just blocking in the colours that you need. But if you want to achieve the results that you've seen, then check out the regular painting tutorial on the channel here, and as I mentioned on the Plus channel, the Dune Crawler's covered there, the Belisarius Call, and actually the Imperial Knight here, there is a full painting tutorial for him on the Plus channel as well. So from start to finish, I'll show you how to paint this exact model. Also, just on the Plus channel, tried to cover more difficult projects to help people out with those more intimidating projects to do. So I found they've been okay, not the quickest, but not too bad. They're sort of in between. But the theme is so unique, I think, compared to other factions. And I found that I'd recommend it if you're an Imperial player, you've got Imperial Guard, and you're like, I'm a bit tired of Imperial Guard, I don't really want to do Space Marines, but you want to stay within the Imperium, then I would recommend Adeptus Mechanicus. It's a definite option. Now, I went for heavy Skitarii, but that's only half of what's available in here. Just show you from the artwork what else is available. So that's the leader I took, Belisarius Call. Tech Priest Dominus I took. Tech Priest Engine Seer is available, I don't have one of them. You've got the Castellan robots here, and the Data Smith. I didn't go down that route, which is more, it's the other part of it. There used to be two separate codexes, Cult Mechanicus models I didn't go for, so I didn't go for the robots, but they're available. You've got the Electro Priests here as an option as well. I didn't go for these because I went for pure sort of Skitarii kind of theme. You've got the half man, half robot mounted on small tanks, the Breachers and Destroyers. These are my Skitarii infantry here, Rangers and Vanguard. This is their elites here, Ruststalkers and Infiltrators. Then you can get the Sidonian Dragoons, these Walkers available. There's a shooting option here with the Iron Strider Ballistarii. So, yeah, it's not like I've got all the models in the range. I only really collected half of them. There's still a good half out there as well. There's the Dune Crawlers, and there's the Imperial Knights, the different variants of them. Just there, Gallant, Crusader, Paladin, Errant, and so on. And here's the... I'm just giving you a view of the Codex here, because you may not even have the book at this stage. That's just showing you different armies that are available. Or the different units that are available. Just here, I mean, this collection is very Cult Mechanicus. There's no Skitarii stuff in here. There's robots, there's the Electro Priests, and then Breachers and Destroyers. So you could, I mean, that army looks entirely different to what I have. So it just shows you the variety that you can go for. And I struggled with that at the start. There is such an extreme of different units. You know, you've got half-naked electric priests, walking retro robots. So you've got hooded cloaked guys, you've got tentacle HQs, you've got four-legged walkers with guns on top. There is extremes in designs, and so I found that was quite hard to try and think about trying to gel that together. But your colour scheme can unite the army. If you paint them, I would recommend you do it, is you paint them all the same kind of colour scheme, like has been done here in this nice orange here. Of Riser, it just links the whole army together. So even though the designs are very extreme, it's your colour scheme that can unite the whole army together as one. So that's quite an important thing to bear in mind. It's the infantry there. There's the knights that you can add in, which I would heartily recommend that you do. And then here's an image just showing you the type of variety that you can have. So you've got robots, your regular infantry, your ornate HQs, the walkers, and these just here. So a very varied army indeed, and you could really theme it in any direction that you want. Mine, I went for sort of a Skitarii sort of style, and I'm still, no regrets really, still very happy with how they came out. So another practical point is cost to buy, and I would say the Knight's obviously going to be expensive, but you pay out for that one unit, and that's a quarter of your army. If you're doing 2,000 points, the Knight's about 500 points. That's a quarter of your army paid for, just by purchasing the Imperial Knight. And then it's about medium in cost. You're just paying out, You got your elite units, you're paying out for your HQs, and your infantry are cheap, so you may well end up buying a fair amount of them. But it's not really a hordes-based army, so I don't imagine you're going to be buying tons of these. As you see in the army video I've done for my finished force, I have a fair amount of infantry, but not tons and tons of them. So it's sort of a medium cost, really. It's not going to be. See, cheaper armies would be the hyper elite armies. You could save a bit of money collecting an army like Grey Knights, for example. So like a sort of a handful of very elite units. You wouldn't have to pay out too much for units. You could end up paying out a fair bit more for armies like Orcs and Tyranids, if you're going to go for loads of hordes and multiple boxes of stuff. For these are sort of somewhere in the middle, cost-wise. What's great about these, though, is because you're getting a variety of units, you can enjoy painting the different styles and the different units, adding them in. It's not like you've got 100 Orc boys to paint all the same. Each unit you paint pretty much can be different, and so it can be a fun experience painting them up, just of all the different variety that is available. And then if you keep the colour scheme the same, then you just apply the same technique. This is what I did, apply the same technique as seen in the painting tutorials throughout the entire army. I didn't change the technique at all, just applied it to each different unit as it came along. So how to play and how to use them in a game, sort of style that you want to go for them to be successful. The way I play them is I break armies into 3 different types. There's an armies that you stay in the back line and you blow the opponent away and then you move up later. That's armies like Astra Militarum are good at doing that. So defensive play, but then you move out later to capture the objectives. Then there's the other extreme, and that's very aggressive, combat geared, close range armies, such as Tyranids mostly, Eldar to some degree as well, sort of armies that are just going to go straight into your face and attack swiftly. Harlequins, I think, would be the same. You wouldn't imagine Harlequins being an army you hold the back line with. They're ones that you swoop down on your opponent as quick as possible. Ad Mech are sort of in between, so they're not an army that I would hold back with entirely. It's very rare you'll see that happen, unless they're playing against an extremely aggressive army. Then they'll play defensively and they can do that well. The usual strategy for these is to advance to the middle of the table. So to do that you want good supporting firepower as you move up, and then the ability to fight in combat with units as well. So sort of you do have a variety of units to choose on. You want to try and choose a mix of units that can support well with fire support, but also some units that can fight well in closer combat. So I talk about this more in the army overview video on the channel here, the new video. Check that out to get all the full tactics and why I chose each individual unit. I do points, breakdowns and upgrades. That's all discussed in that video, but just a short overview here. So I have the army composed of cheap infantry. If I open up the book here, because there's a pretty good variety here. So I have an Imperial Knight and I use him for fire support, so he's to advance and provide decent anti-tank firepower, and then also for close combat as well. He's in the heart of the army, and it's an army, by the way, I usually deploy within a cluster zone so that the combat units can support the weaker units and they can all advance up together as one, and if they need to gang up in combat they can, and if as they advance they can fire. It's that mutual support, and the characters all in the middle, supporting usually by repairing the vehicles and then granting some bonus bubbles as well. So the Knight's in the heart of the force. He's there primarily to provide some fire support and then close combat as well. I then have I have 3 of these in my army, and again their primary function, their only function is fire support. So long range firepower with them. So 3 of those, that's what they're designed to do. But then they're quite vulnerable to combat and so on, so I shield them with ranks of infantry, and the infantry are pretty cheap. The Vanguard and the Rangers are cheap to have units of those. You can get a unit of 10 of them for 70 points. They're very cheap indeed. And then just have those, you can spread them out, and it just creates a band of protection around your more vulnerable units like the Walkers. It just stops deep strikers from landing in and firing, or landing in and trying to charge. That's what infantry can do as a screen. And then you can equip the infantry quite well, some pretty good weapons they can take, but don't expect the main damage to come from them. They're more there just to absorb and protect, and cannon fodder really is the main role for those. Then in amongst that force, I have the, remember we're talking about close combat support, so I have that in the form of the Rush Stalkers. I've been using them by keeping them nearby in amongst the army, and then if a threat does come too close that's nasty, then I can move those out and then they'll engage in close combat quite happily. And then the infiltrators, just because the army's quite bunched together, I want something that can turn up somewhere else in the far corner of the battlefield, and the infiltrators are able to do that. They're able to deploy by infiltrating in. So at one turn during the game, turns 1, 2 or 3, they can turn up wherever they want, as long as they're more than 9 inches away from the opponent. Their pistols are 12-inch range, so they can fire. They can deploy it and fire straight away, and then try and charge. They're just to harass the opponent and to distract them, and they're very helpful for doing that. Then the HQs, which are very, very important for this army. So my 2,000 point army, I do have Belisarius Call, and I do have the Tech Priest Dominus as well. And they are there. They have these 6-inch bubbles. He grants reroll hits for Mars units. That's excellent for shooting. And then he grants reroll ones. Both of them are able to repair themselves, and they're able to repair vehicles nearby. And there's some stratagems and some bonuses, some warlord traits that you can add to these to make them very, very potent at repairing. For example, if you play the right stratagem and you take, for him, if you take, I'll show it to you, just to show you the shenanigans that you can do with him. There is, so you can play this stratagem here, Tech Adept. Use a stratagem after an Adeptus Mechanicus character for your armies use an ability to repair a friendly model. So usually it's D3, and he's just repaired someone. The character can immediately attempt to use this ability again, and can even use it to repair the same model. So you can do another D3, so that's potentially 6 wounds you could restore on a vehicle. But then you can also take a warlord trait. It should be just up here. If you have him as your warlord, Necro Mechanic. Each time a warlord uses the ability to repair a friendly model, the model regains an additional wound. So now it's D3 plus 1, and potentially with that stratagem you can do it twice. That's potential. This guy could restore 8 wounds on a damaged model. Now it could be on him. It could be restoring a wound on one of these. You know, it's pretty good. It is pretty good, but this is 11 wounds, so it's down to 3 wounds remaining, and then he comes along and restores 8 wounds back. It's back up to full strength, and I've done it before, and the opponent's just been infuriated by it. It puts pressure on the opponent. They need to utterly destroy something, otherwise the repairs are going to start, and effective repairs they can be. I mean, that's one of the best repair results you can get of any of the factions, I think. So try to take full advantage. And these characters, he's 8 wounds, he's 5 or 6 wounds. That means that they can just hide behind stuff. They're very hard to pick out and be targeted. And they're also armed for a bit of close combat, bit of shooting available from them, so they can support the other units as well. So the HQs, I think, are very crucial. Make sure you get the right choice, make the right choices when you have those HQs in your army. But so you get the idea. It's like a force that clusters together and advances as one. They fight as one. This machine, mind of the machine type style going on, and then the Imperial Knight in the heart of the army, surrounded by all these minions to protect and advance together. And I would say I haven't done too many games in 8th edition with this final list, but it is powerful. One of the games that I have done, Ad Mech stand up for themselves pretty good. I think it's an army that can be pretty effective. So as far as competitiveness is concerned, maybe leave your comments and feedback. If you're an experienced player with these, especially in 8th edition, then leave your comments and feedback as to how well you get on. But I think they are pretty effective. It's not like an army I collect them because they look nice. They play pretty good as well. They really do. And they're able to stand up for themselves against all of the factions pretty good. So if I find myself being attacked very aggressively, Dark Elder comes swooping in, and I'll play defensively. They'll knit together tight, let out the firepower, which they have. They're pretty good at protecting themselves. And then with your waves of infantry, you can create these human shield tides, these walls of protection. It makes it hard for the opponent to try and break in. Damage that is done on vehicles that aren't destroyed can be repaired, which is infuriating for the opponent. And then if you find yourself up against a very static defensive army, Astra Militarum, you can advance, continue to lay down that firepower, and then close in for the kill. No problem at all. You'll have better close combat ability on average than Astra Militarum, just as an example. So that's pretty much it. That's as much as I can think of here for this introduction to Adeptus Mechanicus. I've enjoyed painting them. The only thing I would change, just to be honest with you, the only thing I'd change is I would reconsider the basing that I did for these. I went for my standard grey, but you can see the model's quite dark in its colours, and there's a lot of silver as well, which is similar to the grey. So feel free to experiment with your basing techniques. You could apply, there is a basing tutorial on the channel here, and it's for the desert colour scheme. They may well have looked better in the desert, or a Martian red kind of landscape. But then you also got to consider, maybe you want to go for a basing that's going to blend in with most of the terrain types that you'll be fighting across. The grey generally blends in pretty good, so consider that as well. But that's the only afterthought that I've had, is maybe the basing could have been something different. But it's okay, it's alright. It's not too bad. But a nice army indeed. Just they are fragile, so be careful with them. They're sort of medium cost. They are fun to play. Pretty straightforward as well. They're not too complicated to use, and I have really enjoyed putting them together and using them in games. I really do enjoy using them in games. And the Knight, I think, is a great feature to have. You've got your army laid out. You've got this big model in the middle. It looks great. So consider that as well if you're going to think about getting into collecting Adeptus Mechanicus. I'd say the main, I don't know, maybe you're coming from a Xenos player and you think, well, I don't want to go for Space Marines, it's a bit sort of predictable, and Astra Militarum is a bit predictable, but you do want to collect some kind of Imperial army, then again, Adeptus Mechanicus may be the theme that you want to go for. And they look nothing like Imperial Guard or Space Marines. They're entirely unique within that Imperial sphere. So, a unique army indeed. And again, if you're an Imperial player and you want to break from Marines and Guard, then this could well be the army for you. So there it is. That is the introduction to collecting Adeptus Mechanicus. Leave your comments and feedback, any questions you have, your own personal experience of these, if you recommend them or you don't, any advice that you have for new players especially, or people freshly getting into these, then especially to hear from any veteran players that have Adeptus Mechanicus. Hints and tips on the rules as well, good units to go for, all of that kind of advice. And I encourage you, if you've watched this video, read through the comments and you can pick up some great advice from those who are already experienced Adeptus Mechanicus players. But there it is, that's the video. Keep a lookout for more introduction videos to the different factions as time goes on. And then check out those painting tutorials on the regular channel here and on the Plus channel as well. Keep a lookout for battle reports as well, just to see how well they do in games of 40k. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time.